to the Gen X Remix, the podcast for bold Gen X women who are done playing small and are ready to build a business or career that lights you up. I'm your host, Tabitha Jones, the Corporate Escape Sherpa and Career Advancement and Leadership Coach. Before we dive in today, I want to give a quick shout out about my upcoming workshop, Escape with Confidence, Clarity, Purpose, and Action for Your Bold Next Act. It's the perfect workshop for Gen X women who are ready to finally get serious about building their next chapter before leaving their day job. You'll find the links in the show notes to grab your spot, and I can promise you, you're going to love these 2 live on Zoom interactive support sessions that are going to help you get on that path to your next act. If it sounds like your kind of vibe, check out the link in the show notes right now and come join us. Now, today's episode is called Remix Your Space, Reclaim Your Power. I'm joined by the vibrant and insightful Melanie Cohen, a health and wellness coach who helps women eliminate physical and mental clutter so they can feel better in their bodies, their minds, and their lives. We talk about everything from emotional eating and growing up with hoarders to how trauma from early childhood can show up decades later, and why letting go of stuff, physically and emotionally, is the key to moving forward with confidence. All right, let's get into it. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us on the Gen X Remix today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for being here. And I love being a West Coaster when I get to connect with people on the East Coast and have some really great conversations. So we're going to dive in and just start by asking my favorite question. Will you share your remix story with us?
I would love to. I feel like there was a remix in college and a remix after. I think we're constantly mixing, and I'm so okay with that. I love all the discoveries I've made. But my biggest remix was leaving a company that I had worked for 19 years and 10 months. I missed the 20th anniversary gift. Oh, well. But I left to go out and start my own business. And I did it in my 50s. And I think that there's something to be said for the maturity of being older, and maybe the willingness to make mistakes. And that's what I needed to be able to do. I worked for a weight loss company for 20 years. I've been a weight loss coach for years after that. And I always wanted to help people. That was a great job to land into. But I always wanted to help people on a much deeper level. So I help people find health and wellness and weight loss by removing the physical and mental clutter in their lives. And I think clutter is something that we don't talk about enough. I have parents who are divorced, live in different states, and they're both hoarders, which was one of the things that kind of made me think, wait a minute, there may be something here when it comes to the health and wellness piece. And as someone who was once over 200 pounds, and I'm not tall either, so 200 pounds was a lot. That process of losing weight meant removing a lot of clutter, even though I wasn't conscious of the fact that that's what I was doing. I was removing physical clutter. I was removing mental clutter, and really set the tone for me in being able to let go of the blocks in our lives, those things like the self-limiting beliefs, telling ourselves things that are not true. I had to stop lying to myself and believe that I could do big things and be here for people.
I love that. We put so many limiting beliefs on ourselves. And I know I talk about that a lot with women who are wanting to leave their corporate job, but they're scared to death. It's like, oh my gosh, what if I fail? What will people think? Or I can't do that. So many little voices that come up into our heads. And I love that you bring that up in along with the perspective of weight and general health and wellness, because we don't often realize how many things we tell ourselves, how many messages come in every single day. Sometimes they're things that happened when we were 3 or 4 years old and we just subconsciously absorbed it and held on to it. So I bet you find a lot of that.
Yes. I think someone that I know that I've worked with said that she believes very strongly that anything that creates like a limiting belief system in adulthood happened as a childhood trauma before we were 7 years old. And so that may be hard to get in touch with because there are so many things that are vague in our memories of that long ago. But at the end of the day, I know so my emotional eating started when I was super young. I found comfort in food, and it certainly didn't help me have a healthy relationship with food for decades. And I think so there's something to be said for really getting in touch with that little girl and finding out like what was wrong and what hurt her and how to address it, because we're probably still hanging on to that.
Yeah, that's so true. And I only know this because I've done a lot of inner work, as I know you have as well as a coach, and just trying to get to the root of some of those things. What are some examples, maybe that you've seen where
Mhm.
that past little girl trauma has really affected someone's health and wellness and weight?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I have worked with a lot of people who have suffered traumas that are like very extreme and very scary and very painful. But I think we lose sight of like the little traumas of our childhood, like those moments in time that like we really are just like a flash. I had an experience when I was 2.5. I almost drowned in the ocean. And I was standing at the at the foot of the beach waving at my dad. My mom was standing next to me. I was not holding her hand even though she kept like grabbing my hand, and I got caught up in the undertow, and I just like was swimming out, or wasn't swimming out. I was just dragged down. There was a woman standing. I don't know. In my memory, she was like right behind me, but my parents said that she was much further back. Didn't know that I was there, caught me between her legs. It was just like she
Wow.
bent over to see, what was there. And what was there was this child that she picked up who was spitting out water and coughing. And to this day, I am 55 years old. It is 52 and a half years later, and I still have dreams of drowning. And when I finally realized what those dreams were about, those dreams are about feeling weighed down by stuff, either being weighed down by my stuff, my things, because I talk about both physical and mental clutter, or I'm being weighed down by the stress and anxiety and anger and other things that are going on in my life. Those dreams don't happen when things are feeling really good, but they
Mm.
come back in those moments of like, high anxiety, if you will. And so being able to get in touch with that little girl, like everything's okay. I didn't drown, like this is one of those great miracles of life. But so many other people share a similar story. I almost drowned in a pool. I almost drowned in a lake. I almost drowned in the ocean. And I think when we can relate what we're dreaming about to our past experiences, well, then all it takes is a little bit of meditation and sleep becomes so much easier, or becomes more meaningful sleep or more productive sleep.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So that is pretty significant for sure. One of the things that I've kind of gone through with my own journey and this clearing this kind of trauma space out is, talking to a couple of different healers and saying, I don't remember most of my childhood. Like before a certain age, I don't remember it. Like I
Mm,
remember
mhm.
little blips. And, as we get into doing that deeper work, things would come out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that thing was bothering me, or I didn't know that
Right,
was so intense. And
right.
yeah, it's without going too deep in the story, but I mean, I remember telling somebody I was talking to her, and my dad, my biological dad, left when I was really young, signed away custody, like all the things. I didn't remember what
Mm,
he looked like. I didn't remember anything. He came back in my life when I was in my early 30s and then
mhm.
died when I was in my early 40s. But as I was talking to this person, what I realized is that when he left, it wasn't just he that left. My entire dad's side of the family left. Cousins, aunts, grandparents, great grandparents, like all of this. And I'm like, it was like this awakening, like, holy shit, like that was huge. And here I
Yeah.
am, 50 years old, going, I had no idea that was still weighing me down. But these weird things would come up, and I'm like, what is that? And I think a lot of people don't realize, especially that trauma, emotional clutter. The physical clutter you can see, right? Eventually you're just like, oh my gosh, what is all this stuff?
Right. No,
That
exactly. And, I think, another piece of this is that, I always say, what do they say? The statistic is like, we only use like 10% of our brain. Which is scary because I feel like I'm constantly on overload. What the
yeah,
heck is the other 90%? Like, what am I missing? And so I think like some parts of our lives, like, find their way into that 90%. And it takes a lot of work to pull them out, especially the ones where if we address what the feeling or experience is, it'll only serve us better going forward in terms of living, a more clutter-free life. And are you on audio only, or do you do video version? I don't remember.
I do both.
Okay, so for anybody watching the video, they're looking at my space and like, well, it doesn't look so clutter-free. So if I could talk a little bit about clutter, is that okay?
Please, absolutely.
So, especially growing up as hoarders, my house looks minimalist. But what is really important for me to express is that I'm not a minimalist. I don't have the desire to be one. I love things. I love colors and textures and patterns and mixtures of all of those things. And so it is important for me, for everyone to know, like, what is your threshold? Like, how much is too much? How much is too little? And so everything in our life, whether it's the air around, the air that we breathe, our physical objects, inanimate objects, animate objects, the whole 9 yards, everything has energy. And there are things that have really great energy, and those are the things that you have to keep and hang on to and hold on to. Things that don't have great energy are the things that we need to let go of. It doesn't matter who it once belonged to, how much money we spent on it, who gifted it to us, what the reason for those things were. If there's no longer good energy, we have to release the stuff. And when I say release the stuff, I mean the physical and the mental as well.
Yeah. I get that. And it's so funny when you mentioned your background, I didn't even hit me in any way because I've seen some hoarder houses. I've been in a few, none of my own, none of my immediate family, but enough to know that is not an issue.
Right.
But honestly, I mean, even my desk right now, because it's Friday, it's kind of the drop zone during the week. If I don't
Right.
organize it by Sunday, Monday, I'm not set up for success. All I can do is focus on oh my gosh, there's so much stuff. And it's
For
literally
sure.
just on my desk. It's not anywhere else in my house. It's just right here. So I get
Right.
that. So help me and our listeners kind of understand the parallel then, like how this clutter really ties into that health and wellness and weight loss space.
So there are a whole lot of connections. I'll start with the one that to me makes the most sense. I think, I mentioned before that I used to use food as a way to manage uncomfortable feelings. And it doesn't matter whether they were high emotions like frustration, anxiety, anger, or they're low emotions like sad, basic sad, but then also deep depression. Um, for those of us who have a hard time managing those feelings, food is a really great answer to that. And I know that sounds weird when I say a good answer to it, but the reason we go to the food is that we know it's going to make us feel better, whether it's short lived or, well, it's never going to be long lived. We're always going to need more food because there's no amount of food on the planet that's really going to satisfy an uncomfortable feeling or emotion. And so clutter is stressful, whether it's physical or mental clutter. And so if your space is stressing you out, here's more eating. And not everybody is an emotional eater, I get it. However, most of us really are. And so eliminating the clutter can help with that. It's not going to make all emotional eating go away, but it's certainly going to limit the amount of stress and anxiety and frustration we're experiencing. Another piece of this is depending on the space that you're in, different clutter can affect you in different negative ways, like the kitchen. If the kitchen is a mess, if the counter is a catch-all for all of the mail that hasn't been opened, and we have way too many appliances that we don't really use very often, if there's mess, we are not taking the time to pull out the cutting board and all the beautiful fruits and vegetables and the good knife and the glass containers to store things in the fridge. If we don't have the space, it stresses us out. It stresses us out. And what are we most likely to do? Open the apps, pick up the phone, and order, something in. And I don't want to demonize ordering in food. There is a place for ordering in food. And there is a place for the kinds of foods that we tend to order in. But if I'm going to have pizza, and I live in Brooklyn, New York, people, you have no idea. It doesn't get better than here. If I'm going to have pizza, I want it to be something I was planning for and had been thinking about and had been looking forward to, as opposed to it being an emergency, last minute kind of food, if that makes sense. So those are, I think, like two of the most basic. But if you can think of any other environment where there's stuff in your way, some people have exercise bikes at home and the only purpose they serve is the dry cleaning or laundry. And so there is clutter that's getting in our way. So there's a million other examples, but I think those are like the really good, like basic ones.
Yeah, so helpful. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not much of a cooker. My husband likes to cook, thank goodness. But I will do some meal prep at the beginning of the week just because when I am more organized, I eat better. So I always pre-cook ground turkey. I
Right.
always make sure I've got vegetables right next to it, just to make sure that there are options other than, picking up the phone and ordering that really bad thing.
Right.
Smart. Yeah, and I know, when you say emotional eater, I completely recognize that because I am, and I've bought it and worked on it for years, but there are times where it's just like, "You know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna eat that ice cream." So we don't eat ice cream at home, like, we just don't bring it home. It's just easier.
That's
Uh,
another way to like really like, organize your environment in a way or create and build an environment that supports health and wellness.
yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. So when a client comes to work with you, what
Mhm.
are the most common concerns, complaints, or pain points that you are hearing?
I mean, the biggest the majority of my clients are roughly my age or they're middle aged. So they're in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. So the pain points are I don't feel as good as I used to feel. My energy isn't great. I have neck, back, hip, knee, ankle, whatever pain that's getting in my way. I'm not sleeping well, like all the things that are a part of the
Yeah.
process. And so, focusing on health and wellness in a way that supports those things not being so bad because we're never going to get rid of all the pain. We're never going to sleep perfectly. But being able to discuss the things that are getting in our way often can help us find strategies to be able to act in a way that is in line with our goals and in line with our values. So I get a lot of that. And I'll get a lot of people who have tried literally everything to lose weight, everything. And I think it's not fair to say that health and wellness and weight loss is all about calories in and calories out. It's not. The reality is, we all know, eat more fruits and vegetables, eat less, eliminate or limit, high fat, high sugar processed foods. We know we have to exercise. We know we should probably be getting quality sleep. We know we should be drinking water, but so many of us are not following through on all of those tasks, if you will. And so it's really important to address, so where's the block coming from mentally? What is getting in my way of being able to make the choices that I know are going to support me on this weight loss journey? And that's where I brought the clutter in, because I really felt like, one, it's a very unique approach. And two, maybe more of us should be doing that. There should be more coaches out there that address clutter and weight, or at least clutter and health and wellness. So, yeah.
Okay. I love that. And when you say all the things, literally at 40, I feel like the brakes screeched and woke me up in the middle of the night, and it was my metabolism coming to a stop. I was like, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Can I tell you, for years, I was trained by the company that I worked for to say, you don't gain weight in menopause. It's not the hormones. It's just because you tend to slow down. And that's what I said. And when I hit perimenopause, I was like, I feel like I need to follow up with like 1,000 women that I told in the past, no, 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 it's not menopause. And the reality is that we still, I think it's better, but we still do not have an open dialogue about all of the things that happen in menopause. It's not just hot flashes and weight gain around the middle. There are so many other things that are happening in our body that's really uncomfortable and people aren't talking about.
yeah, it's so funny. I was interviewing another guest a while back, and that's what she said. She's like, I feel like, when we're around, 10, 11 years old, we sit down, someone gives us the talk, we get, prepared for life. But when you start hitting that 35, 40, nobody does that. It's like,
No,
exactly. And then you're constantly
no.
feeling like, is it just me? I mean, I'll tell you right now, I will not work out or work with a nutritionist who is under 40 because I feel like they don't get it. They're great at what they
Mhm.
do, and I know it, but I also am like, I need you to have experienced this because that makes a huge difference, which makes you
Understood.
really amazing in your field because you know what these ladies are going through. Oh,
I
so good.
do. I really do. And I love, just had I don't want to say argument, but I had a discussion with my husband recently who had been complaining at some point that he was having a really hard time falling asleep because I kept scratching. I was like I couldn't, like my hair was touching me or whatever it was. And like 2 days later, I was watching a TikTok or a reel or something. And this woman was talking about all the symptoms. And she's like, and this crazy itchiness. And it was like my head exploded.
Yeah.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with me. It's just another one of those things. And of course, I had like a little conversation with him. And I said, I just need you to know it's another one of those things I have absolutely no control over. It is just, what's happening. He's supportive, but just doesn't get it.
Well, we barely get it and we're going through it. Like my ears itch all the time. And I was like, why are my ears so itchy? And I'm like, it must be allergies. And same thing, I was watching a reel and she's like, with like 10 common symptoms of menopause nobody talks about. And one of them was itchy ears. I was like, oh, thank God, because my ears are probably cleaner than most anything else around me. Like I clean those guys out every day. So funny. Yeah, they're definitely, we should have just a forum of women who have gone through these things that can talk about what it's really like.
Yeah, a
Oh,
100%. And to know, like we did get like the talk when we were kids, but I
yeah.
think a lot of people take for granted that like the hormones of preteens and teens is like exponential and leave it at that. Like as a result of like turning 18 or something, like now our hormones will be in line for the rest of our lives, except when we're pregnant. I'm gonna give myself some credit for what I was dealing with when I was pregnant. But yeah, like I want to talk about things that make men uncomfortable. Period. End of story.
Yeah, we should definitely be best friends. Okay. That's so good. Oh my gosh. Well, I love what you're doing. And I know that your clients are enjoying some great success. I stalked your website as I always do with guests. So if one of our listeners wants to connect with you and learn a bit
Mhm.
more, Melanie, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I mean, there's lots of ways, but I mean, at its most simple, my email address is melanie@thoughtfullycoaching.com. But I'm on all the social media platforms with variations of Melanie Cohen and Thoughtfully Coaching. I also have a podcast. We'll need to talk about you coming on and talking about things. But I think I want people to know that it doesn't matter like where they're reaching me. I'm out there.
Perfect. And I have all your links. So we'll include those in the show notes. So
Great.
it's really easy because I also know sometimes in menopause, we don't remember things.
That is right.
Sometimes that little memory slips. So definitely we're making it easy for our listeners and make sure we'll get those in the show notes. Melanie, this has been so much fun. But before we
Yes.
go, what is one last bit of advice or inspiration you'd like to share with our listeners?
I have something that I say to my clients all the time. And it's about setting ridiculously simple goals. Like the best goals are the ones where you say it out loud and you're sure that someone else is going to think it's stupid because it's so little, it's so tiny. The tiniest it is, the littlest that it is, the best. We are going to reach the goal faster. We're going to feel confident. We can pat ourselves on the back, more confident, motivated, and inspired for the next goal. So it's not about saying, I listened to this clutter coach. I have to go and clean out my closet. No, don't start with the closet. Like start with a shelf in the closet, start with a drawer in the bureau, start with something ridiculously simple.
I love that. Ridiculously simple. Listeners, you heard it. Melanie said it. I say it. I say it a little differently, but absolutely, it doesn't have to be big. It can be just the smallest thing. Just throw away that one extra cup on the shelf that's driving you crazy every time you open the cupboard.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did that recently. I'm like, why does this cup keep falling out? I'm like, it just wants to go. It's just one too many cups.
It's sending a message for
It's like,
sure.
get me out of here. Oh my gosh, Melanie, this was so great. And absolutely, I look forward to staying in touch with you. And thank you. Just thank you so much for being here and sharing your advice.
Thank you for having me and letting me spread the message.
Wasn't Melanie amazing? I hope her insights on clutter, confidence, and the connection between your physical space and your emotional wellness gave you a fresh perspective, and maybe even a little nudge to clear out that one drawer, one corner, one cup, or that one belief that's been holding you back. If Melanie's message resonated with you, be sure to check out the show notes for all the ways you can connect with her. She's the real deal and brings so much heart and wisdom to the work she does. And if you're daydreaming about your next chapter and actually are ready to build it, grab my free guide, Escape with Confidence, a step-by-step roadmap to your bold next act. It walks you through exactly how to plan your exit and step into your next season with clarity and courage before you leave your day job. The link's in the show notes. And if this episode inspired you, be sure to share it with fellow Gen X women who are ready to escape on purpose, just like you. Until next time, friends, keep rewriting the rules and keep being amazing.